Still losing money at poker? After years of playing and analyzing millions of hands, I've found 4 strategies every winning player uses. So in this video, I'm going to show you what those crucial strategies are using live hand examples. The first strategy is going to be a simple one and is going to be illustrated when I get dealt ace-king offsuit in cutoff position. When you play poker, you want to be able to look for this specific player type that should not be winning money off of you. Ultimately, the strategy is not paying the nits at your table. And if you're not familiar what a nit is a tight player at the poker table who is terrified at losing chips. They tend to make a lot of folds pre-flop, and when we do go post-flop, they tend to just always show up with the nuts when they put money in. Also, they play like they're trying to survive at the game instead of winning the most money possible. So when I am in cutoff, I am going to be opening 3x, making it $15. It's going to make its way to the blinds, and there are going to be 2 older gentlemen there. The one in small blind is going to be about 60 to 65, and the one in big blind is going to be in their early 50s. Now, yes, sometimes people always say that the older people at your table are going to be tight. Even though this does happen sometimes, keep in mind for this exact hand, I have been playing with these 2 gentlemen for at least an hour to 2 hours, and they're going to do something that I haven't seen yet. Small blind is going to be putting in a 3-bet here, making it $50. When it's big blind's turn to act, they're going to be putting in a code 4-bet, and they're bumping it up to $130. Keep in mind, when it feels like somebody hasn't 3-bet since I graduated high school, odds are they're going to have a very strong hand, right? When it's my turn to act, I do not even have that tough of a decision. I'm going to be behind all of the hands in their range. So without hesitation, I'm going to be folding ace-king in this spot. Ace-king is a very strong hand, but sometimes you have to learn to overfold to players who are just too tight. I was able to make this fold so easily because I was paying attention to these 2 specific players my entire session. I used the information I've been building for the past hour or 2 to come to the conclusion that I can lay this down without any problem. And another quick spot you can pay attention to see if somebody is a nit would be when they check back spots post-flop where you should be putting in another bet. An example would be if they had a strong top pair, top kicker, or let's say they had a baby flush, but somehow they find the check back on the river. That's just ridiculous, especially if the board is one that you should be finding another bet on the river. So if you see this happen, run for the hills and do not ever pay the nits in your game. Before I move on to strategy number 2 with this next hand, if you're not sure how to prepare for your next poker session and identify nits, fish, and regs at your poker table, you definitely want to check out this free poker guide I prepared for you. You can get this guide by scanning the QR code on the screen to go to my site, or you can click the link in the top right corner or pin comment in this video. So strategy number 2 is going to be a more complicated one. It's a spot where majority of players just don't get right. The strategy is going to be knowing when to bluff. For this hand, I'm going to get dealt ace-4 suited in big blind. Hijack is going to be raising to $15. It's going to fold all the way around to me, and I'll be making the call. We're going to go heads up to a flop of king 10-9, 2 hearts. Here, I will be starting out with a check. Villain is going to be finding a continuation bet, and they make it $15 to go. Ace-4 suited does have some backdoor equity here. I put in a call. We go to the turn, and it's going to come to 7 of hearts. The 7 of hearts does bring in the flush draw from the flop. I am going to check, and with the turn being a scare card, villain will be checking back. We're going to go to the river, and it's going to come to 9 of clubs. Now, something that winning players really know how to do in all of their games is finding the exact moments when to make good bluffs. A normal player here may sometimes look at this board and say, sometimes when I have ace high and I check and my opponent checks back, I'm going to win sometimes. This may be true, but keep in mind of your opponent's range. If they also have ace high, let's say ace jack or ace queen, their kicker is going to play and you will be losing a hand. That's just one example, but the main thing I want to focus on is the range advantage we are going to have versus hijack on this run out. Some of the hands we're going to have that are going to have a range advantage are going to be flushes. Being in big blind, we're going to have a lot of suited hands that are going to be defending a 3x open here versus hijack. What does this mean? This means that I will have more flushes than my opponent. You have to think about it. Are they going to be opening Jack 6 suited here? Or are they going to be opening Queen 6 suited? Will they open a hand like 8-6 suited or 9-7 suited here? Usually they're not going to have these hands unless they're getting super loose pre, but even if they are, we will still have more flushes than them. With the flush coming in on the turn and them checking back and not being willing to put more money in, you can kind of say they don't have a flush because how many people are going to be checking a flush back here at 2-5? People are generally going to want to keep putting money in the pot. On top of that, when we get to the river, the board is going to pair with a 9. I once again have the range advantage in the 9x region here. I am going to have all the combinations of 9-8 offsuit, 10-9 offsuit. I will, of course, have suited versions of these, but the point is hijack will not be opening these hands. So now with that breakdown, you should be able to understand we have the range advantage for flushes and for trips in this exact situation. In spots like this, you do not have to play the cards in your hand. It is better to play the range of hands you are going to have. I will be placing a bet here, and it doesn't have to be a massive one to get the job done. I take my chips and make it $40 to go. After only a couple of seconds, my opponent is going to lay it down. And yes, I know it can feel weird at first to find bluffs with ace high, but you have to know and understand how ranges work in order to pull off spots like this. This time, we're going to be upping the stakes a little bit where we are going to be playing a 3-bet pot instead of a single raise pot. Keep in mind, ranges are going to be different in this exact format. I'm going to be dealt ace 5 suited in under the gun position. I find a 3x open here, making it $30 to go. It folds all the way around to villain in the small blind. They're going to be putting in a 3-bet, and they bump it up to $130. Ace 5 suited, very strong hand here. We're going to be in position, and we are playing deep at this 5-10 game. We will be playing almost 200 big blinds effective. With all those factors, I will be putting in a call. We're going to go heads up to a flop of Jack 5-10, 2 hearts. In this spot, we have bottom pair and some backdoor flush draw and straight draw equity. Villain is going to be finding a C-bet here, making $100. With all the factors I just said, we can't go anywhere. I will be putting in a call. We go to the turn, and it comes to 3 of clubs. Beautiful turn. That backdoor flush equity is now coming in. It would be beautiful if we can just river a club and have the nuts, right? Villain is going to be putting in a double barrel, and this is very strong in this configuration in a 3-bet pot. They grab their chips and put out a wager of $310. With it being about 60-something% of the pot, we are getting really good odds to call here, and we're in position, so I take my chips and I put them in. We're going to go to the river, and it's going to come the 2 of hearts. This means the front end flush draw, aka hearts from the flop, is going to be completed now on the river. Once again, I want you to keep in mind the range that small blind is going to have in this situation and the range that I am going to have defending the 3-bet from small blind. In this spot, I will have more flushes than my opponent. In a standard 5-10 game, people just do not 3-bet too light. Also, this specific player is going to be a reg at this table, so I know for a fact they are not going to be 3-betting me light. So because of that one reason, I will have the range advantage so far on this run out. I will also have hands such as pocket jacks, pocket 10s, and pocket 5s that my opponent is just not going to have. I can see a player at 5-10 maybe 3-betting pocket jacks here versus an under the gun open, but pocket 10s, it's just not going to happen, right? So now we also have the range advantage on sets in this situation. And before my opponent makes a decision on the river, there's going to be a key live tell that happens here. When the heart comes out, my opponent is going to take a peek at their cards. After they peek at their cards, they're going to be firing out a bet of only $300. This is going to be about 25% of the pot after my opponent bet 30% on the flop and 66% on the turn. When someone checks their two cards, when there's a huge equity shifting card here that comes in on the river, aka the flush, and then they magically find such a small sizing on the river, do you really believe they would do this with a flush? Not only that, if they do have a flush, they're going to have the nut flush with ace king suited, ace queen suited, etc. They may even have some king queen suited as well. As a reg, you're going to want to get paid in these hands to maximize your EV, right? So you're not going to go for this small bet. Let alone, very specific, you're not going to look at your cards and then bet this small. I am looking at this as my opponent checked to see if they have a heart in their hand because they forgot the suits of their cards that they 3-bet pre. They knew their exact hand, but they didn't know the suits when that card came in. And now because of this, they are finding this small bet. If I put in a call here, I will never win versus this triple barrel. I have about $1,300 behind, which is going to be 130 big blinds. I know that 3-bet bluffs feel weird because of the massive pot size, and we're deep in this situation. People are usually scared to bluff in these situations, but keep in mind, they are also scared to put in calls. So with that massive breakdown of everything that has just happened, I will be going for the jam here on the river. So as usual, it's going to be an Aunt Jemima moment, which I like to call an all-in when I'm at the poker table. And after about 5 to 10 seconds, my opponent is going to be folding their cards. It is very scary to pull off bluffs like this, but when you're able to break down your opponent's range and the fact that they took a peek at their cards, which they would never do that with a flush, in my opinion, and then bet small, you now have the advantage in the spot to put your opponent in a tough situation. It's not just a random bluff, it's a well thought out one. Before I move on to strategy number 3, if you want to learn how to prepare better for your live poker session before you sit down at the table and what to look out for while you're sitting at it, you definitely want to check out this free live poker guide I prepared for you. You can download it by scanning the QR code that has just popped up on your screen, or you can click the link in the top right corner or pinned comment to go directly to my website. A lot of people have thanked me for this simple, quick guide, so make sure you get yours today. Now we're going to go back to keeping it a little simple again with this next strategy. It's going to be understanding you have to let aggro players bluff into you. For this hand, we're going to get dealt 10-7 suited. We're going to be in big blind, and it's going to be time for some blind versus blind action. It is going to be on small blind to act. And notice that I do have this person labeled as aggressive woman. And this is going to be based on her actions the past hour or two at the table. Even though she's aggressive, she's going to be putting in a limp, blind versus blind. I'm going to be raising a limp this time. I'm bumping it up to $40. She is somehow going to be finding the limp raise here, which you don't see too often at a cash game table in the blinds. But she does put in that 3-bet, making it $160 to go. With her getting out of line so many times with me and other players at the table, I know that 10-7 suited is a weaker hold'em, but I am going to have position. I know how she plays, so I will be putting in a call. We're going to be going heads up to a flop of King 6 Jack, 2 clubs. Very nice flop for me. I am drawing to a 10 high flush. Of course, her being an aggro player, she's going to find a C-bet. She puts out a wager of $110. Not going anywhere yet. We're going to be putting in a call. We go to the turn, and it's going to come to 2 of clubs. Perfect spot for me, right? This person has been finding a lot of 3 bets today, and they have been putting in a lot of C-bets and turn double barrels. As this card comes out, I assume they're going to be doing the same thing, and they do when they grab their chips and put out a bet for $350. Now in this spot, some people feel they have to start raising it up, but why would I do that? I have a 10 high flush, hits the 4th nuts. Yes, if another club comes on the river, it's going to change the strength of my hand. But what did I just say? You have to let aggro players bluff it off. Once in a blue, she will have a hand, but majority of the time, she's just going to have nothing. So because of those reasons, I'm just going to be putting in a call. We go to the river and it's going to come a sad 8 of clubs. Now that this card is here, some people may feel, Brandon, you should have just raised. Oh my goodness, it's a bad river. But it's not as bad of a river as you think. It is very hard to have a 4-card flush here. My opponent is going to say they have a flush when they do announce they are all in on the river for $800. In this spot, I do go into the tank for a little bit. As I've said, she has been getting out of line the past hour or two. She has been showing up with hands that she should not have in certain spots and finding these random bluffs that just don't add up. What did I say before? Winning players know when to bluff. And personally, I did not feel that this person recognized when it is appropriate to find bluffs. I confidently believe that no matter what this run out was, she was always going to be put it in the triple barrel. It just makes it even better for her now because she can have that random ace-king offsuit with the ace of clubs, ace-queen offsuit, ace-jack offsuit with the ace of clubs. So with that breakdown, I am going to confidently put in a call. She's going to turn over her cards very quickly, showing ace-10 suited. We are going to scoop almost $1,400 in a spot where I wouldn't have won this much if the player wasn't aggressive. So in the future, when you have this specific player type at your table and you are seeing them bluff too much, sometimes even with the 4th nuts and when the run out looks a little bit bad, you have to confidently be able to put in a call. In this next hand, I'm going to get dealt pocket 5s in low jack position. I'm going to be opening for $15. Goes to my opponent in cutoff. They're going to be finding a 3-bet, bumping it up to $85. Goes back around to me, and I know this is a very big 3-bet, but notice it's a 2-5 game this time around, and we are playing almost 300 big blinds effective. I can win a lot of money here, so I'll be putting in a call. We're going to go heads up to a flop of 5-10-3, rainbow. We hit second best set on this board. For this specific spot, this player has been targeting me a little bit. They have been finding a decent amount of 3-bets against me and other players at the table. Also, I have never seen them check back a flop. They have always put in a C-bet. Majority of the times, they also put in double barrels. Not being a pre-flop aggressor here, I will start out with a check. They're going to be putting out a bet here for $65. Last but not least, this player did tag me a nit. They did say this information out loud. So in this specific spot, I do not want to check raise. How can I check raise if I'm a nit? They will always believe that I have it. And also they are an aggro player. So I want to allow them to keep putting in the money for me. So no check raise for me here. I'm just going to put in a call. We're going to go to the turn and it's going to come to 2 of spades. Spade flush draw is there now. I'm going to check. And of course, the aggro player will continue to bet with a double barrel. They are going to be firing a wager of $250. You may believe, once again, this is the time to put in that check raise, but I'm still not going to do that. I'm a nit. They're aggressive. We have to see if they will be firing that triple barrel on the river. So on the turn, I'm just going to be putting in a call. We go to the river and it comes the 5 of clubs, giving me quads. I am going to check, hoping that they do fire that 3rd barrel. Unfortunately, they do check back. Of course, I show my quads and they're going to lay it down. In this spot, I never did get to see what my opponent had, right? But if they had a random hand such as ace 9 suited, ace 8 suited, ace jack offsuit, they really aren't going to just start calling check raises from an it. They're going to assume I have the best hand possible almost always. So notice I was able to adjust my game in order to let the player keep betting into me and also recognizing how they had me viewed and tagged at the table. And if you are gaining a lot of knowledge so far, you should check out this live preparation poker guide I prepared for you. It lets you know what to do before you sit down for your poker session and what to look out for while you are playing poker. You can get free access to this guide by scanning the QR code that has just popped up on your screen, or you can click the link in the top right corner or the link in my pinned comment to download it as well. I have had some really good feedback for this simple poker guide, so I'm sure it will be able to help you too. The next strategy that good poker players always use that you want to make sure you have in your game is going to be finding checks in specific spots to maximize your EV or your overall winnings. In this spot, I'm going to have King 10 suited. I'm going to be in low jack position. Somebody did just come back to the table and posted $5. So instead of opening to 30, I will be opening to $35 this time. It folds around to cutoff. They are going to be putting in a call. Button puts in a call. And everybody else is going to be folding. We're going to go 3 ways to a flop of 8 King 10 rainbow. Very good flop for me. I have top 2 pair. Odds are I'm going to have the best hand at the table. I will be finding a c-bet this time around. I take my chips and make it $40 to go. Cutoff puts in a call. Button, however, is going to be laying it down. We're going to go heads up to the turn, and it's going to come to 6 of diamonds. Very good turn here since I do have a king high flush draw now. It's just going to give me even more equity here. I'm going to be finding a double barrel in this spot. I grab my chips, putting out a wager of $130. Opponent isn't going anywhere yet. They will be putting in a call. Now, this is when things are going to start getting very interesting. We're going to go to the river, and it's going to come to 10 of clubs. If you look at the board here, I have the nuts, aka the best possible hand that can be made. Yes, if somehow my opponent has pocket kings, I would lose, but pocket kings in this scenario would always be putting in a 3-bet pre. So with it being a single raise pot, we can automatically eliminate that hand from our opponent's range. I want you to take a second here. When you see that you have this massive full house on the river, what are the first things that you are thinking about? I personally believe that majority of poker players are thinking, I have a full house. I really just need to get paid here. What amount can I put in the pot that my opponent is going to pay me off with? This is not how you should be going about this situation. Instead, and it's something that we have been doing this entire video, we should be thinking about our opponent's range. What hands do you believe that your opponent can call with? What hands do you believe that your opponent can maybe bluff with if we were to check? Do we maximize our EV by putting in the bet ourselves? Or is the higher EV option, aka the option that's going to generate the most winnings for us, putting in a check? Let's further break this down. If my opponent has 10x here, and I were to put in a check, I assume majority of the time they are going to be doing it better themselves, right? So we already checked off one part of our opponent's range that's going to be betting on the river. If my opponent randomly has 9-7 suited, they are going to be betting themselves once again. If my opponent has pocket 8s or pocket 6s that they were slow playing by letting me bluff into them because maybe they believe I'm an aggro player, they once again will be putting in the money themselves. Now let's start to think about bluffs in my opponent's range. What if my opponent had a hand such as Queen Jack suited? How about Jack 9 suited? They may even just have Queen Jack offsuit because I have seen players flat that in this spot in all of my games. If I bet, can that hand call? No, it's just not going to happen. If I check, can that hand bluff? Yes. Now, they're not always going to bluff, but they will find some bluffs there because they are fully aware they cannot win by checking back. Also, if I were to just bet, sometimes hands such as a weaker 10x, etc., would just be putting in a call. We are sitting $1,300 effective here, and there is $460 in the pot. So to maximize EV and my winnings here, instead of putting in the money myself, I am going to be putting in a check. After a couple of seconds, my opponent is going to do exactly what I wanted. They are going to be putting in a bet themselves. They put out a wager of $350. Also keep in mind, my opponent may also have a busted flush draw. Yes, I have 2 diamonds in my hand, and it's harder for my opponent to have it, but they still can. Now, because they did the betting themselves, I now have accomplished everything I wanted here. Number one, hands that are strong that want to call, just bet $350. Number two, hands that are bluffs that don't want to call and want to get me off my hand, put in $350. Number three, we now get to maximize by putting in that check jam. So it's going to be an Aunt Jemima moment. Once again, I am all in on the river. My opponent does go into the tank, which means they do not have a bluff here. After about 20 to 30 seconds, they will finally put in an extra $1,000, an entire buy-in at 510. I let them know I have King 10 suited and they are going to fold their cards. They do announce their hand out loud and they let everybody know they had 10-9 suited, the exact hold-in in my opponent's range that would have just put in a call if I did the betting myself. To continue maximizing your winnings in poker, you need to know these 5 mistakes that good poker players never make at the tables in this next video.